Hello and welcome to this next lecture where we're going to explore from a practical point of view what we studied in the previous lecture about configuring the Windows server. Now, you can see that I have the virtual box manager open and all we need to do is to just power on the server 2019. So I'm just going to hit start. So in this lab, we are going to try and see what's the current default configurations that the server has and how can we go about applying whatever we studied in the previous video. That has to do with naming, that has to do with time and date, that has to do with patches, setting up a virtual network, and a whole lot of other stuff. Okay, so I'm just going to sign in here, put my password. Did I have that correct? Yeah, I did. Anyway. Okay, so we've already explained what a server is, and the server is used to render services. So whatever services are installed on the server, and if the server has a proper network configurations, other devices within the same network can access those services. So it might be a little more vague now, but you understand when we go along or when you follow along. And I do hope that you're following along with the practicals, because that's the only way. You can only learn by doing. Okay, so you can see whenever you open or you run a server, you have this server manager that normally just opens, and you have the basic things that normally come up and configure this local server. And the first thing is rules and features. So rules and features are the services. So just a couple of things. So we want to look at what's the current, if you install a new server, what name does it normally have? We installed it in the last section, but we didn't do any configurations. I left it for this video. So at the moment, we'll have a look at the name, and just before we even look at the name, have a look at the time. It says it's 8:25 and it's the 12th of May. And you can see from my host machine at the bottom right corner, it's correct date 12th of May, but it's actually 4:17. So it's not really having the right time, is it? So we'll have to do the timing dates. And we'll also have a look at the patches that we need to install. Okay, so at the moment, this is the server, and a quick way to see what the name of the server is, you can find that in the server manager by going to local server. And if you happen to have a server that's running and you don't have this automatically opening up, what you can do is you can always just go to the start menu and open the server manager. So this is the server manager, and straight on you can see some of the information that it's given us. It says computer name, Windows, whatever, squeaky number, and it's a work group. So this server is just like a Windows machine. It's not joined to any domain, and you can see that it has IPv4 address assigned by DHCP, so that means it's not having a static IP. And at the moment you can also see the time zone, which is this time zone. That's why it's given this time. I am in Dublin, Ireland, and my time zone would be different from this. So there's a couple of things that we just put there that obviously we'll be setting up, we'll be configuring. So we need to name this server. Now, this is going to be the primary server that will be used to run most of the default services that we're running on this course, Active Directory, and etc. So the naming convention that we normally give servers that are domain controllers is normally DC, or maybe whatever the name of your company is. Maybe if you're working in PwC, maybe PwC DC01, or if you're working for a company called Oracle DC01. The 01 and the 0203 is just a count of the server. The 01 will obviously be the main server, the primary server, and the 02 will be like maybe the redundancy one, the failover one, for load balancing or stuff like that. So I am just going to rename the server, and to do that, we're just going to click on this, and it takes us straight there. Another quick way to get there, I don't know if this will work, Windows Run, and you can type in sys dm.cpl, and that should also bring you here where you can click on change and you can change the name of the server, right? So I'll just do it from here, and we will change the name of the server, and I want to call it just DC01 to make it easier. And I'll click OK. And normally when you rename, just like a workstation or any Windows operating system, you normally need to restart the machine for this to take effect. So I'll click OK and I'll close. I am not going to restart now. I'll restart later. And before we do the restart, we just need to look at the timing late. So back to the slides we learned from the previous video. So obviously, if this was a server for printing services, it would be printer01, or if it's an NTP server, it would be NTP01. If it's a local server for mailbox management, it could be Exchange01. So basically, that naming convention is what you'd use to rename the server. So quickly, I'm just going to change the time and date. I'll change the time, cancel, change time zone because that's easier. Where's Dublin? I hate it when you try to use a shortcut to get there and it doesn't take you there. Where's Dublin? It should be 00, yeah. And click OK. And notify me when clock changes, that's fine. And internet time, it should sync with update now. It should sync to that. Okay. So that's okay. So we have the time set up. And what we need to do now is to do a quick reboot of the server so that the naming convention would come into play. So I'm just going to restart the computer, the server here. It is planned. Continue. So the server has been restarted and is back up and running. I just need to input this so we can sign in and validate. So I'm logged in and hoping the server manager application should open on its own. Voila. I think ever since we added the cores, it had now been booting up quickly. So we have the local server, and now it's called DC01. And the time zone has changed, which is correct. However, when I compare this time to this, just realized I'm actually having the wrong time. That's strange. I'll fix that later. Anyway, it's just going to be a time zone issue on my own machine. Anyway, so we have the server renamed and it has the correct time. I can validate that by looking at the time on my phone. And what we need to do now is to check for patches. So at the moment, if you go to settings, and you see, we'll go into system updates and settings to see is there anything that we might have missed when it comes to patches. Is the server currently on the latest patch, or does it need to install patches? So ideally, if it is confirmed that it has patches that it needs to install, you schedule that during a time frame that is not really going to impact users. Okay. Just going to bear with me now. Just going to go to the settings and we'll go to system, go to about, and it says this is the current version of the server that we have. So it's just a matter of understanding is that the current version or not. So basically you can check all of those you can look online to see what framework or what security feature updates are available, and then you can double check to see does it correspond with this version, and if not, then we have to schedule an upgrade installation. Okay, so to check for updates, we'll go back to home and we go to updates and security, and obviously since we installed it, we never checked for any patches and updates. So assuming this is a downtime and we need to double check to see if there are any patches to install, we schedule that. So you go to check for updates, and then it loads up all the updates that's missing and it would install them. And then once that's installed, it'll probably reboot a couple of times. And after the reboot is done, services will be back up and running. So you can see that this one, for instance, has a tons of updates that are pending to install, and that's going to install. And once that's installed, we move on to the next bit where we need to now set up the virtual network, which is pretty straightforward but tricky. Anyway, so I'm just going to pause the video here and we'll reboot the server when this is all done, and I'll see you in the next video where we'll start setting up the virtual network.